What we're looking at today is light painting. So the use of a torch to light up your subject. And as an example, we'll be photographing this guitar, and that will be entwined with some deer antlers just to make it a little bit more artistic. But basically you can paint anything using this technique. We'll be working inside, you can do it outside, so all you need really is somewhere that's very dark, and the darker the better. You could do it in woods, you can paint scenes, you can paint objects, even things like barns, sheds and those type of things can be painted just using a torch. We're going small scale, so we're in a very small room. I'm actually shooting in the day, so I've blacked out all the windows. And trying to make it as dark as I can, get a little bit of ambient light in here, but not enough to cause any problems. And you can use any camera that you want. The only thing that it needs to be able to do is to do long exposures. Long exposures are really important because that's going to give us time to paint things. We're going to be working in the dark, so you need a long exposure to get enough information to record the image. And so there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and what I'm going to do now is just show you a few examples of light painting and what you can create using these simple tools of a torch. Okay, so there was a few examples. What can we use? Well, obviously you can just use a torch. You can actually light things with the torch, paint over the subject, and it's a good idea to keep the torch moving constantly all the time. So if you've got your subject and you keep the torch still for any time, that's going to cause burnout. So it's going to be too highlighted, so it's constantly moving the torch around to paint the subject. And how long you do that for depends on a lot of things. It depends on the settings on your camera. A lot of the time I'm going to be working with exposures probably around anything from 10 seconds to 30 seconds, sometimes even longer. The darker the better, so it will allow you to do much more if you've got really dark conditions. Setting the camera, the ISO, you want to take that down as low as you possibly can, so around 100 or below if you can. Some cameras will only go down to 200, so whatever you can get it down to, take it down. That will give you much more time to do things. The aperture on the camera is also important, and that you may have to vary, depends on the shot, but we'll probably be working between f5 if you've got really dark conditions, and you may have to put that up slightly if you've got ambient light coming in, because by making the aperture smaller, we can cut out more light and get longer exposures. So we'll be talking about that as we actually do the shots. But first of all, let's just have a look at some of the tools that we can use for light painting. So as I say, we've got the torch. The basic torch on its own, you can make circles or paint letters or whatever by working in the dark and just moving the torch around. Obviously it helps to wear dark clothing. Even in some places, sticking on gloves while you're actually doing the painting will help. So some black gloves, and all these little things just help get the shot more perfect. You can use things as simple as a bottle. So if I get a bottle and I turn on the light and move that around, we can get all nice effects by doing this type of thing. Obviously you're seeing it in the light, but when you see that in the dark, you get really nice effects. Plus with this bowl, it's got a few ridges on there, and the light catches these ridges and gives it a really nice effect. So things like that are things to look out for. Simple bottles can be great. You can also buy specialised equipment, which can be very expensive, but some of them are really good. I'm looking for something I've dropped on the floor, and that's what's called a universal connector, made by, I think they're called light painting company or something like that, but an American firm. I've sent off for a couple of bits off those. They're quite handy. And what this is, it's just a ridged piece of rubber basically, and it means that you can fit your torch into the one end, and the other end, the tools that they make, the light painting tools that they supply, basically just fit in there nicely. They just slot in. But it's also handy because it's the same size as a bottle. You then put your torch in there, turn your torch on, and it's best to hold it on this part. That just gives you a better connection with the tools. So it's really handy. It's the same size as a bottle top, so you can use all different types, bottles, coloured bottles and whatever, plus the tools that they supply. I've also got a piece of plastic pipe here that quite handily also fits in there. So we have now got a bit of Star Wars lightsaber going on. So lots of different things you can use. Another thing is the use of coloured gel. Now I find these are great, and all you've got to do is wrap that around the torch. This is quite stiff gel, which is good, especially when you're using it with a torch. You don't want anything that's going to flop about too much, but that's great. And you can get some lovely effects with this, and we've got students using this who follow my lessons and got some great effects just using this and painting light. The exposure of this light depends on the movement. In other words, if you try to do the effect and it's basically not coming out at all, you need to move slower. So the slower you move, throws out more light and you get more exposure. The quicker you move, you get more of a mist type effect, if you want to do it like that. But by using that effect and moving the torch around, you can get some quite nice ribbon effects, some that we'll be looking at in a moment. Another thing I use is this clear piece of Perspex. Now, I've also purchased one which unfortunately hasn't come yet, which is a diamond shape and fits into the tool that I showed you earlier, so it'll be easier to use. But with this, the way I use this is to put the torch onto it and again move it around, and this gives a really nice soft dreamy effect. So Perspex, this is really thick. It's quite expensive actually, this. I've purchased this, but you can pick them up. You may even find them, you know, in dumps or anywhere really where you can find plastic. And putting plastic to great use is brilliant. Don't discard it, use it. So lots of different things to think about that you can use to get these techniques. What we'll look at next is actually creating a shot. So we'll be using the guitar, we'll be using some antlers, deer antlers, and setting up the shot, and I'll tell you the settings to use on the camera. Okay, so that's the shot they're going to be taking, the subject there with the antlers, and I'll be using a torch with this blue gel, and I'll be painting around this area with this blue gel to create some light. So that's basically what I'll be doing, but of course I'll be doing that in the dark. Now I'm not sure how the camera will work in the dark and what it will pick up in moving mode, but we'll try that. So I'm going to go and take off the light so I can give an example of the movements that I'll be making. So obviously you're not going to see the guitar because that will have to be painted in separately to this effect. So this is the effect part that we're creating. So I'll be moving the light around, and if the light is too dark with the blue, I'll be moving it slower. If it's overexposing, I'll be moving faster, and I'll be twisting and moving the light to light up this side of the guitar, at the back of the guitar, with this blue light. We'll also be painting very quickly, probably. We won't need much light on this, strong light, but we're working quite fast and just giving it a quick light over to create the exposure on the guitar. And again, doing that, let's turn the lights on. When we're doing that, of course, we will actually end up with an exposure all created with the light. So you need to be checking all the time after each shot. You're going to get a lot of results that are no good, and you're going to get some that probably they're really great and give some great effects. It's all playing, and the way to control the exposure is the length of time you use the torch on the subject and the speed at which you move the torch with the cellophane, with the gel, to actually create that effect in the background. So a lot of trial and error. Setting up the camera, we're going to try different settings. I'm going to take a few shots now using the camera that I'm taking the movie with. So we'll be switching off the movie, but I'll take a few shots, and those settings that I use I will show you on the video when it's complete, putting the shots on and the shutter speed and the ISO and whatever. Basically the ISO will be set to 100 and we'll vary the other things to get the shot that we want. Okay, so as you can see, we've got some really creative shots. Using the backdrop, by the way, if we just have a look at the backdrop, this is really cheap. The stands, I think, was about £13 each. They're made by Newer. I bought those off Amazon. The material I already had, it's from an old Lasterlight that I had and sold, and I just kept the black covering for it. So it's just basically cut off. And the support for this is basically, I've got two clips on the end of those stands, and they're like bulldog clips, and you can get those really cheap. So there's two bulldog clip stands just to connect a rod to, and the rod is actually just a decorating stick for painting that you can put a brush or a roller on the end of, and I utilise anything basically. So that just all clips on. These clips are great, you can use them for all different types of things. So again, I purchased those off Amazon. I think again they're made by Newer, who make a lot of cheap photography things, but are quite good, you know. So you haven't got to spend a fortune. You don't even need a backdrop in some cases. You could be working outside, you could be working in some forests, it doesn't really matter. But working inside, obviously using a black backdrop, it's going to stop all the distractions and any light picking up in the background. It's going to ruin the shot. The camera settings that I use for the majority of those shots, I started off shooting at f9, ISO 100. It was set to 20 seconds for the first period. Then outside it started raining, things went a little bit darker, there was a little bit of ambient light coming in, and that meant I could drop the speed down to 30 seconds, and that was much better. I could do a lot more then. Much more time to do things having that 30 seconds. On one of the shots you see some trailing lights, different coloured lights, and that is basically created with this. And this is a set of fairy lights that I bought, I think 4 of these for about £10, £9, something like that. And it's got a little battery pack on there, and you can turn them on like that. And the way I use this was just simply to sweep it fast across the background of the guitar. You can do circles or whatever. When you're using this though, it picks the light up really quick, so it's quite powerful. So don't tend to overdo it. It's just quick movements and then get it out the scene. But all these little things to get creative you can think of. Any type of light you can utilise. One I didn't do was to create like a spiral effect, and you can get a light on a torch and put some string on it basically. So something like this, bit of string, and you can turn that on and basically just swirl it round, and you'll get a spiral effect which you can paint around something. So, you know, just by swinging it. You can even suspend it off the ceiling and keep bumping it around like this, and you'll get a spirograph effect. And quite easily you can put the camera on the floor, put the focus point to the torch, turn the lights off, swing the torch around. You can then get gels and place under the torch while it's swinging and keep changing the gel, and you'll get different colours, and you'll get like a spirograph effect, and you can keep bumping the torch as you're doing that with the exposure, and you'll get some great spirograph effects. So a really good little project there to have a play with. Lots of things you can do with light painting. There's no end to it. Any subject, any setting, all you need is the dark. So wherever it's dark you can create these effects. Even simple torch lighting, if you've got a subject like an old camera or something and you want to be creative, and just you can paint the areas where you want the light in the dark and get some really nice effects just by, you know, nothing fancy, just simple torch use to illuminate the image. So lots of things there. Get out there with your camera, get creative, try some of the effects and see what you can come up with. All the best from me.